people would go and say, "Oh, as if you get, I don't want to go and see a psychologist. It's a sign of weakness." I would sit there and go, "Well, I'm going to go see a psychologist so I can get the most out of myself." Like, how are you looking at that?
Yeah.
Same as like it was a common thing with a business coach to go, "Oh, I don't want to see a business coach. My business isn't doing shit." Mate, coaching is all about taking you to the next level. Same as with a rugby team. The coaches are there not because you're shit.
Yeah.
They're trying to make you better.
Yeah.
Like,
That is a fucking perfect example. The best rugby teams in the world have got a coach.
mate, you're Tiger.
God, nearly knocked the... All right.
The plant off.
Nearly took the pallet off the wall. Good start to 2020. We have two very special guests in the room today. One is on Rossi's face. And the other one is the actual special guest. Played in 2 Super Rugby finals, one for the Tars, one for the Reds. He came barnstorming on for 20 minutes for the Wallabies and is now a leadership and culture coach. Mr. Beau Robinson, welcome to the 120 Grit studio, mate.
Thanks, Jets. Excited to be on here. I think I've given my best material before we actually hit the record button. But anyway,
It's perfect.
see what we can do.
Mate, no, it's been a great little pre-chat, but heaps to go through. You're actually one of the first people we reached out to when we first thought of this podcast idea, so it's great to have you in here. It's going to be very good chat.
Well, you've got a pretty good presence on LinkedIn. You put yourself out there. You really back yourself, and you're doing a lot of, as I said, leadership and culture coaching. And so
Hopefully it's not an anticlimax, eh?
Nah, mate, never. Not on the 120 Grit podcast.
we need all the coaching we can get.
Yeah, we might get something really good out of this. It's going to be great.
I've got to go there. I asked you before we started if you got any nicknames because we're heavy nickname people, and you had one that stuck out in particular, Benzie.
Yep.
How'd that come about, mate?
Yeah, so I've got my name tattooed on my back, and my first day of pre-season at the Waratahs, they're handing out the singlets, so I chuck a singlet on, and the singlet covers up the R-O at the front of my name and the O on the end, so when you're looking behind me, all you can see is the B-I-N-S of the Robinson, so the nickname Ben just came about instantly,
And
really.
it's stuck.
Like every good nickname. What a story.
The Aussie culture, it's the best. Well, mate, let's kick it off. You born in Alice Springs, of all places.
Yep.
How was that? You probably don't remember. You left there when you were 6 to Dubbo.
No, well, so I was born in Alice Springs, but I actually grew up on cattle stations up near Camberwell and the Barclay Tableland.
Which ones?
Brunette Downs and Avon Downs.
Been there.
Have
I worked
you?
at Lake Nash for
Oh, yeah, there
3
you
years.
go. Yep. Yeah, I mean, always talking about Lake Nash. So, yeah, the old man's a bit of a legend up there. He's in the Camberwell Drovers Hall of Fame.
amazing.
And Tennant Creek and all that. So I spent a lot of time up there going to all those social functions and whatnot as a little kid, just running around as a little tacker. But so didn't actually grow up in Alice Springs, and then moved down to Dubbo when we were 6 years of age. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What took the family down to Dubbo?
My dad's old man had passed away a few years earlier, and I think he just wanted to be closer to his mum and whatnot. And that was the main reason. Sort of thing. It was an interesting move. Even now, I still can't get out of him necessarily. Why he did, and what was the real rationale behind that? Because it was a pretty big move. I
Massive.
think he loved living up there. Enjoyed the lifestyle. Mum did so. But anyway, yeah.
Please tell me you got a chance to get her in the Dubbo Zoo at least.
What? Who? Me? I've been around the Dubbo Zoo.
Have ya?
Yeah, several times.
Push bike?
Anyone doing the trip from Brisbane to Melbourne or vice versa, definitely pop over and get in there. Highly recommend. No money back guarantee, but
The Dubbo Zoo.
Wow.
So, sport was a big thing for you growing up?
yeah. So I was right into the horse riding. Love the horse riding. Obviously, when you grow up in the territory on big cattle stations, that was my life. But when we moved down to Dubbo, I finally got exposed to team sports and instantly just took to the team sports. Got into the soccer and the cricket, but particularly the soccer. Something special for me about being able to share those emotions and the excitement with other people when you're trying to achieve the same goal. And I've never actually liked individual sports, never taken up any individual sport because I love that team aspect so much.
I'd agree with that as well. Big team, man. I look at
Because you need to be carried.
Because I need to be carried. Yeah, I need everyone else to make me look good. And also, I need regular breathers.
Well, I was reading on your LinkedIn bio, mate, and you said you like team sport because it required a large degree of selflessness and disregard for one's self-preservation for the team's benefit. That's pretty amazing quote, as in, like, I sort of read it as in you were just happy to put your body on the line for those around you. Is that?
Yeah, I think, obviously there's soccer, which is still a team sport, but you're not so much worried about self-preservation. Like, a human instinct, I believe, is to obviously preserve oneself and body and keep it intact. And, when you start playing rugby in particular, you're asking blokes to eliminate that thought and that natural instinct to look after their bodies in the pursuit of a team goal. So, like a breakaway, looking to get over the gain line and smash it up into an opposition player or players, because so a bloody winger can score, who gets all the bloody glory, like a bloody Rod Davies or someone Digioni getting all the glory from all the hard work that I've been doing.
Yeah.
And that, to create a great culture where people want to do that is something special.
Was that something you learned at a young age?
No, probably more on reflection, I think, about having an understanding about the great cultures and why they're so hard to achieve. Like when you're an individual athlete, you've only got to worry about your own performance. Whereas if someone in your team is letting you down, they let the entire team down. So as I said, you've got soccer, but then rugby or those contact sports, rugby league, you're asking a lot more of a person. It's not just giving your best. It's about, listen, I want you to actually, potentially get hurt physically, seriously. And then obviously the next level of that is the military, where you're asking blokes there to put their lives on the risk, on the line, for the benefit of those around them. So, the mentality around that, where there's so much at stake, not only the game, but people's health or lives, is unbelievable. How do you get the most out of that with the teams and getting individuals to buy into that culture?
Yeah, wow. So when did you transition, I suppose, from the round ball game where
14, I took up rugby. Just got to the stage where you're going through puberty, and there was an increase in testosterone levels. I wasn't going real well with the women, so that was the only way to release it, was through contact sports.
It makes sense. I mean, you've made a fair go of it, so
yeah. Unfortunately, the face has not got any better.
I see you got a ring on your finger, so something must have worked.
Happily married. She's a Polish girl who I actually met at a yoga studio in Brisbane. Actually, I was doing yoga. I'd been doing yoga for 7 years, and it finally paid off.
I was only saying that
last week.
Last week. My wife and I go to yoga Friday mornings, and I said, I'm the only bloke in there. And I'm like, all you single blokes have got rocks in your heads if you're not going down doing yoga. There are chicks everywhere, and there's no blokes around.
If there's one thing you take out of this podcast, get into yoga.
Get into yoga or Pilates.
Not for your mind, not for your body, but for the women.
For the possibilities.
And it took 7 years too.
7 years. And my hips never felt tighter. I worked that out.
So obviously, the passion for team sport and rugby in particular, you're 14, that was something that was your sort of main priority going through the senior school, I suppose, rugby?
No, I was pretty focused on grades. I did pretty well in Year 10. Really enjoyed, especially mathematics, where I did very well at school, in the statewide, tests and whatnot. But then coming in Year 11 and 12, I went away to boarding school, and I'd probably just burnt myself out in Year 10, didn't do so well, and thought, I don't want to have anything to do with my degree. Like, I don't want to be, I want to get out and be practical. I want to get a trade sort of thing. I don't want to get a university degree. And so probably didn't give it definitely didn't give it the attention that it deserved.
So you'd made that decision in grade 10, was it?
No, year 10 I had a great year. Year 11, I went to Stenny's and Stenny's in Bathurst, St. Stanislaus College, and was really excited to get there and get stuck into my schooling and my exams and study and whatnot. But then I think I was just exposed to rugby from a different perspective that I hadn't seen before. I was like, wow, unbelievable. I love this game. Anyone that's been to an all-boys boarding school understands that it's just something unique about playing in the first 15 in front of an entire school and having the school. And that just became my priority over the study.
School doing the war cries and getting the
exactly.
getting the fields going.
Which is something that I'm not proud of. I'm disappointed that I didn't make the most of that opportunity. And that's not a reflection of the school either. Like, they did everything they wanted to, but you can take a horse to water, you can't make him drink.
Are you saying that from an academic side or a sporting side?
Academic side, yeah. Sporting, it was great.
Yeah. So was that sort of, when did you sort of sit back and look at that and readjust your focus? Did you do that into year 12 or when you finished school?
No, when I'd finished school. So even then, I don't want to do anything academically. I've had enough of school. I was bored, sick of sitting in a bloody a classroom. And initially I wanted to go into the army and get a trade, and then started to play all right with the rugby and make some rep teams in the final year of school, and went, okay, righto, well, I'm still adamant that I don't want to go to university. I'm going to I took up a landscaping apprenticeship, which I really enjoyed when I moved down to Sydney.
Yeah, amazing. That's how did you find that? Yeah, how did you fall into that job?
The landscaping?
Yeah.
Well, always wanted to do a trade. Always wanted to do something with my hands and be handy. And I think the main thing why landscaping really appealed to me is it's the visual presence that it has. Like, you can build a beautiful house, but if you don't have a nice garden to finish it off, then it's half complete. So, the sitting there and looking at the end of a job going, wow, look at what we've created is something special, like, as opposed to a sparky or a plumber. Oh, yeah, I put the lights in that. Yeah, cool story. Who gives a shit?
Damn right.
Yeah, damn right. Or a plumber, I put the pipes in there. Yeah, nice, good on you.
Yeah.
Whereas the landscape gardener, you drive past there all the time, and, yeah, just really enjoyed that.
So you're a man that likes things that look good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes,
You were saying you broke your leg during that apprenticeship. Yep. What happened there? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I'd moved down once the first week after I finished my exams at Stenny's. I moved down to Bathurst and Belmore in Sydney, and joined the Bulldogs and moved into the dog kennel, the house that they've got there for generally the country boys or the Queensland boys or the New Zealanders. So
the infamous dog house.
Yeah, the infamous kennel. With all of their out-of-state players have gone there, including Sonny Bill. And I wanted, as I said, get a landscaping apprenticeship. And in a game there, I think I was playing against Cronulla at Shark Park. Hate that place, hate that team. And
preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Broke my leg, and the boss just said to me, don't come back here because I can't be worrying about what you're doing with the football. I'm trying to put a team here together to work, sort of thing. Which I thought was, I still do think that's fair enough to some degree, although I don't necessarily agree. When I see other trades, even out in Dubbo, these guys who are telling their apprentices that they're not allowed to go and play rugby on a Saturday, and you're like, even though that guy might have played 10 years for the club, you're like, God, mate, that's a bit hypocritical. Why are you taking the enjoyment out of this kid's life?
Yeah, you don't like restrictions like that, especially, from a work environment.
I guess it's a hard juggle because, when you got small businesses and single sort of operators who are trying to make a go of it, they need that sort of commitment and reliability. So
it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and we've seen it a lot in the trade. So yeah,
it is a hard one. How did you how did you happen to come about and get with the Bulldogs? How did that opportunity arise?
So I'd never really played league. Like, league had never been my full time. I just played generally at school just because I do like the game, but my preference was rugby, and my preference was rugby because I'd probably seen the awesome, back then the schoolboy games was on ABC, Joey's and Review, big. So I actually applied for a few of those schools. I applied for Scott's, Joey's, Barker, and didn't get any interest there. And also the Wallabies were doing really well. They were selling out the MCG with 110,000 people and the opportunity to travel, we'll probably talk about it a bit later, some of the countries to go and visit and play, and it was phenomenal. I was like, wow, how cool is this? So I want to be a part of rugby. And so I played again a few games of league generally for the school. And then when I made the Australian schoolboys, I actually had a bit of interest from the Waratahs in the academy, and then the Roosters and the Bulldogs, and thought, well, I just liked what the Bulldogs were offering. They were offering like a place in the dog kennel. Their training was a bit better renowned than say the Waratahs academy. I think at that stage. They were going to hook me up with a job and really just look after me. So I said, yeah, righto, that's what I'll do there. And I thought if I don't go and have a crack at league now, then I won't go and do it. I didn't see myself going to Union, getting stuck in there and then jumping over, if that makes sense.
How many in the kennel? How many were you living with at that time?
God, I think 12 in like an 8-bedroom place.
Really?
It was hectic.
Yeah, right. How was that?
Yeah, different. I did not enjoy that. Next place I moved into, I said, listen, it's got to be in a 2-bedroom apartment because it was just and like some of these kids were 16 and they're on $40,000 a year.
Wow.
And poor old Bowie's just slogging away as a landscape gardener on an apprentice wage. They didn't have to go to work. Even some of the blokes who were, say 19, 20, 21, 22, still in the house, were on big money possibly, maybe 25 grand, and had their living costs mostly covered, plus match payments. Like they didn't have to work, so that was tough because sometimes I'd be going to work and they'd just be going to sleep.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, was that would have been really hard? Like, were you comparing yourself against them and saying, fuck, I got a raw end of the deal here, or was it a driving factor to be like, oh, I'm going to keep putting in and get it over these guys?
I don't think either. It was just, but that was what it was.
The situation.
They'd earned obviously those contracts for what they had done up until that point, whereas I hadn't, sort of thing. It was just, we just weren't all aligned. It was just tough seeing that when I was getting up at say 5 o'clock and
just going to bed.
And, just going to bed. Just a few distractions and whatnot, and just wanted to. And I'm pretty private when I get away from the rugby. I like to, I don't think I've ever lived with another rugby player after that, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just like my own space and whatnot.
Yeah, amazing.
Suppose you got to be pretty driven in a situation like that to keep getting up and doing what you're doing every day when you're surrounded and living with blokes who are in a different situation.
You've got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So the drive wasn't necessarily to get up and go to work. It was like, well, this has got to get done. But you've got to be driven to go and still come back and do all your extras. You're required to train, let's say it was 6 till 8, but if you rock up there at 5, do you want to go and do that? You don't have to do that. That's optional extras. Yeah, that's where I was driven there.
Yeah, right.
So one of the other things you have on your LinkedIn profile is that when you moved to Sydney, you learnt the values of determination, dedication and sacrifice. What were some of the sacrifices that you were making in that early stage?
Yeah, that's a good one. So the sacrifices, I'd moved there the first week after I'd finished exams, and I went to Belmore. So I didn't know anyone. Belmore, country boy. Belmore's a bit different. And all my mates at that stage were just going out celebrating. They'd finished school, so they were just getting on the piss. They were out having parties and whatnot, and they're always, every weekend there'd be someone having an 18th or a party out in the country. And here I was Saturday morning, getting up early in the morning and driving to bloody Wanda Sand Hills, running up Sand Hills, and I was like, far out. And, it was pretty tough, and I left my girlfriend too, so I was quite lonely there, especially leading up to Christmas. Wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And there's, plenty of examples of guys, especially country blokes, that move to, Sydney particularly, and they just can't handle being away from everything. They've got their network, their family, their friends, and especially the Aboriginal guys. You know, they find it particularly tough. They might last a week, maybe 2, and then they go home. So that was tough, and especially on the Sundays, I felt quite lonely. Like I used to, cry myself to sleep sometimes. Just going, fuck, do I actually want to do this? Why am I doing this? And I suppose that's where the determination came through. No, I'm going to keep going with this.
So that's what got you through it, that determination of wanting to succeed there?
Yeah, to give it a good crack, because I'd seen a lot of blokes who had gone, who were from Dubbo particularly, who had gone and, you'd heard that they'd got opportunities or contracts to go and join a professional organisation. They end up back there, and then often because of a girl, they go back, the girlfriend told them to come back, and then they move back, and 3 or 4 years later they'd be regretting it, and they'd just be, wrecks. You'd see them on the drink, and I saw that for my entire career, not just in Dubbo but also in Sydney, where blokes going, oh geez, I wish I stuck with it. And I didn't want to do that. I was worried that happened. I thought, well, I'm just going to give it all and see what happens, and at least say that I've given my best shot as opposed to giving up.
It's a young age to be, making decisions like that, I suppose, and knowing to stick with it. Because I remember when I first finished school, all I want to do is get on the drink and party, and literally, on to the next party every weekend, wasn't it? So it is a massive sacrifice at that age, because you think you are missing out on everything, don't you?
Everyone is doing it. Your world is doing it, and it's a big thing. It's a big thing to leave school. You've gone through school for 12 or 13 years. That's pretty
institutionalised.
It is an achievement, but I suppose too, you want to go out and celebrate that you're now into the real world, and hang around everyone and do that. And you've got that period. It's you finish the exams at the start of November, and you've got to clear 2 months to go and do that, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think that laying there crying yourself to sleep at times is that's pretty raw, but that's pretty real, right? And I mean, I think there's plenty of blokes out there who cry themselves to sleep for all sorts of different reasons, but no one's talking about it, But this is this kind of shit that young blokes go through at these times of their life when they're trying to, and your example, not sure what you're doing is the right thing, if you're going in the right direction, you probably got a great opportunity in front of you, but trying to figure out, an existential crisis, trying to figure out what the fuck you're supposed to be doing with your life.
Yeah, because it is a big gamble too. There was 50 blokes, I reckon, in that's the Jersey flag under 20s. There's probably about 50 blokes, I reckon, when I first got there, and 5 of them didn't come back after Christmas because they were just like, nah, don't want a bar of this. And out of, say, that group, because we had a few of the, so you get the Jersey flag, the SG balls, the 18s and the Harrimat 16s, you had a few of the SG ball blokes, so they cut a few away. But out of those guys, those 50 that were there, 2 blokes went on to have a decent rugby career, myself and Isaac Luke.
Oh,
really?
Bully.
Yeah, the bull.
He's a champion. Yeah, right. What was he like back in those days?
Yeah, a little smart ass, but he was just unbelievably strong. I could sit there and try and wrestle with him. And when I first went there, I had no strength anyway, but the bloke was just all over me, unfortunately. And he wasn't not a big bloke by any means, but he was a little goer.
Yeah. No, good man for South, old Bully Luke.
So where was it on to next from there?
So after a year, I was like, right, I'm not enjoying life. I'd got the sack, so I was like, I'm in a bit of trouble here. I didn't have a real good crack at school, but I need to do something. I need to go to university and get a degree.
The one thing you didn't want to do?
Yeah, the one thing I didn't want to do, because I was quite clear that I wanted to be a professional rugby player. So I fortunately got into ACPE, Australian College of Physical Education, got in there and started doing PE teaching, and went back to the Waratahs and moved over to Northern Suburbs, joined a rugby club called Northern Suburbs. So because with the rugby league, you played a lot of Friday night games and a lot of Sunday games, particularly the Bulldogs. I reckon that year played a lot of Sunday games, so that also made it tough. It meant that you couldn't really go back. If we played Friday night, it would be all right. I'd go back to Bathurst, and see my girlfriend and my brother who was at school, then go and check in with him or sign him out. But after that. Whereas when I went back to rugby, there was all the grades there. There was say 4 grades, 3 colts, and they all hung around. So it was that real club community feel, which I really enjoyed. So it was good to be back there and had a year with the Waratahs in the Waratahs Academy, and then was fortunate enough to pick up a 3-year deal with the Waratahs full-time squad.
It's a massive move. How did it come about from the rugby league side, like the Jersey Flegg playing for the Dogs? Was that something that you sought out to go to the Tars, or was that an opportunity that came to you, or how did that transition happen?
They had been interested when I was finishing school. Obviously, Australian Schoolboy 7 anyway, so were interested to get me there. And then they were still interested. They'd come and watched a few games of me playing league, and the Bulldogs were still keen. But I just wanted to get back to a bit of familiarity and get out of Belmore. So rugby union was the opportunity, and had probably a bit more stable offer from not only the Waratahs but northern suburbs to help me, support me, so that I could focus a bit more on the rugby as well.
Yeah, amazing. Who was the coach at the Waratahs then when you moved there?
Ewan McKenzie was the the first coach, the head coach, but I didn't have much to do with him in that first year. I was with the academy coaches.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So you started there in 2007. Did you say? Was it 2007?
2006 was the academy.
Academy. Yep.
Yeah.
And 2007 was your first season with the Tars.
Yep.
So how many were you full time in the?
Yeah, full time. Yeah.
Yep.
When fortunate enough, went on a tour to the UK and Ireland and played 4 games over there, and after that and got told I was had been offered a 3-year deal, which I was ecstatic about. Like I was quite surprised. 3 years was probably unheard of for a young bloke. Generally it was maybe a rookie deal for 1 year or a 2-year deal, but they offered me a 3-year deal. So got that, and then made my debut in the second round of the 2007 rugby season over in Durban against the Sharks at the age of 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
How was that? Yeah.
I'd come that quickly, so I'd signed a 2-year deal with the Waratahs to be in the academy. So to sign that deal and then go on and make that debut was unbelievable how quickly that happened. It was awesome because, a lot of these guys I'd been admiring, who I was playing with, Matt Dunning, Adam Fryer, Dan Vickerman, Wycliffe Parler, Kurtley Bill was in his first year, who I'd been watching and played against.
Oh, because he was carving it up at Joey's, wasn't he? Was he at Joey's? Yeah.
Yep. Lottie Takiri, Peter Hewitt. Then all of a sudden you're one of them sort of thing. It was amazing at 20 years of age to be fortunate enough to go on and make your debut. Yeah.
Do you feel like you belong there, or you feel a bit out of place?
No, I felt as though I belonged. I'd done pretty well in the trials, I reckon, earned my stripes. I got man of the match in one of the trials against the Crusaders, and that gave me a lot of belief. But I suppose I was just like, I'm just going to go out and give it my all, and what will be sort of thing. So, there was not that feeling of, should I be here at all?
Yeah. Was there a moment where it sort of sunk in, like where you got out there and you're like, holy shit, I'm actually doing what I've always dreamt of doing? Or was it just sort of another game of footy? Obviously it was a bigger occasion, but was it like
it was definitely not another game. Yeah, you're pretty nervous, That's, again, that had sort of been the dream. The goal is to be a professional rugby player. And, even maybe after the game, when you're out and you're just like, I've achieved something that no one will ever be able to take away from me. You're in the nightclub and you're just going, wow, I'm actually a capped super rugby player. I'm a Waratah. That's pretty awesome. And again, I've got a photo that's still quite special to me, where we've gone out in Durban, and in the photo is again, Lottie Takiri, Adam Fryer, I think Will Caldwell might be in there, Peter Hewitt, Tom Carter, just legends, and I'm in there. I'm just like, wow, that's at 20 years of age. I'm having a wine with dinner with these guys. How good!
That's awesome.
How did you stay grounded through all that process? Like, how did you keep your feet on the ground?
Oh, those blokes will knock you down pretty quick. Some of the blokes in that squad will knock you down pretty quick. But I don't, the old man used to knock it out of you too. Like my old man was pretty tough on me. Where there'd be games where I'd score 3 tries and he'd walk off and go, "Why'd you miss that tackle?" So grounded just comes with fucking territory.
Yeah, right. So your old man's a bit of a hard ass.
Yeah, he's pretty tough on me.
But you hear a lot of those fathers that are harder, but it's sort of they are so proud of what you are doing, but they just do that just to get that extra inch out of you. I think is that how you look back on it, or was it sort of he was just a hard old bastard?
No, I don't think if I do this, I'll get the most out of this. But no, I don't agree with that at all. It's just like I'm not going to give him anything.
He just doesn't want you to get too carried away. Just bring you back down a peg.
But it's really interesting, like I do a lot of personal development and a lot of stuff with the leadership and culture, and you've got to understand where people have come from. So what's been his upbringing? Did he just grow up like this, or has that been instilled in him because of his old man? And I asked some interesting questions that I had for this little project on self-development, and I went and asked him and my uncle about their upbringing and whatnot. Like some of the stories that they had there were pretty tough from their old man, who, looking back, I had my uncle who I interviewed went away to Vietnam, and he, now that we know what PTSD is, he goes, I can definitely see that, his father, my grandfather, had PTSD. He goes, but you didn't know that at the time. It was just like he's an angry, volatile bloke. So you've grown up with that without any understanding. So what impact has that had on their life, their upbringing, and then turning them into a father? Whereas now, because we've got that awareness, we can then be a bit more considerate and understanding. Not that it makes that sort of behaviour okay, but again, we can sort of understand.
See where it comes from.
Yeah, see where it's come from. Just from a different perspective.
Everyone is a product of their environment and their upbringing, aren't they? And it's not something that you can really help a lot of the time. You know what I mean? You kind of end up being the way you are. Yeah,
it's a lot of hard work, and it's got to be that's got to come from self-awareness.
For sure,
you can't sit there and tell someone this is what you've got to change. They've got to discover that themselves.
Exactly.
And they've got to. I think you guys said you want to talk about it, but that self-awareness and knowing what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and that's a big thing that I do again with the leadership and culture coaching. I'd say there's 4 areas, say for leaders in an organisation that you want to work on. Is you're as a person, your strengths and your weaknesses. You got to be aware of those. As a leader, your strengths and your weaknesses in your industry. What are your strengths and your weaknesses? How are you learning and improving in that area, and in your role? So if you're in marketing and you're an agricultural company, you've got to learn about marketing, but you've also got to learn a lot more about agriculture. So much like a rugby team, you can only improve on the things that you have identified areas that are holding you back from reaching your potential.
But see, this is the challenge, right? Because I think when you're in a team environment like that, you can be critical of your own game for sure, but you've also got coaches and support staff around you who can help identify different weaknesses and things in your game that could be improved. What we're dealing with is, we're obviously targeting tradies and blue collar, industries and all that kind of stuff, and there are a lot of similarities, but people don't necessarily have those coaches and that support network around them, and they might be in a relationship where they've got some negative traits and they're not being the best version of themselves, but they don't realise. And when they get, when the missus or whoever brings it up, they don't want to hear it from them. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, how do you get someone to become self-aware that sometimes their actions or their behaviours might be negative?
I suppose you can get them to rate themselves on different aspects, so asking questions. So, how is your relationship? It's great, it's perfect, it's good, it's very good, it's okay, it could be better, I hate it, it's the worst, I don't want to be here. Doing that and, taking that time to sit there and assess. But I suppose, that's up to you guys to what are the areas that they should be sitting there and assessing and reflecting on, and working out what they want to improve in and how to improve that. And possibly, do you guys have a scorecard or something that's there? I know I've been to some personal development stuff, Tony Robbins, where they get you to rate each different. I think there's a wheel of 8 which you can get on the internet, and you rate those different aspects out of 10. So that's a good way to start. And I don't know if you do have that wheel or something like that, but getting that out to them. And
it's definitely something we've talked about a lot, and because it's a goal of ours to be able to provide that sort of collateral information to allow blokes to do that. But you're saying you've been to different Tony Robbins things, right? And you've taken yourself there, gone through the door. So that's half the battle. Like you want to go and you want to do some self-development stuff. So that's awesome. But how do you get? It's those people, I guess, who have an existence where they aren't even at that stage. They just don't want to.
They don't want to accept that there's a problem or something like that.
Or they don't even know. Or, they might not even know. Or they might know and they just aren't ready to.
Well, if they think that they don't have fucking weaknesses, they're an idiot.
And we can always be better.
Yeah. And that for me, that comes down to, I am constantly looking to improve. So how can I constantly improve in every aspect of my life? Because that's what I want to do as a rugby player. I get frustrated. And I remember one coach telling me, I said, what can I work on? And they said, just keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, no.
What sort of advice is that?
Yeah. I was like, mate, have the balls to tell me what I need to improve on. I could point out several things, but I want to hear it from you, because I was constantly striving, and I would go to the coaches all the time going, tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I need to do. Because not because I was embarrassed and lacked humility to get that feedback, but because I simply wanted to be the best that I could be. Like, I was an average rugby player, but I was constantly trying to improve and get better, because it was a constant grind, mate. Like, I was in and out of professional rugby 4 times because I was that much of a battler.
There's perseverance for you. Right?
Let's talk about that, because in 2008, in the second year of your contract with the Waratahs, you made the Super Rugby final in Christchurch, played the Crusaders.
Yep.
And lost 20-12.
Yep.
Run us through that experience over there.
Gee, I probably can't talk to you about much of that, because I literally have, I don't reflect back on that.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's just like an erased memory, and that's why I'm so driven about teams and people succeeding, because the difference between second and first, especially in an environment where you are measured and there's so much scrutiny, such as a professional rugby environment, is huge. Like 2011, when we went on to win the Super Rugby title, was one of the best memories of my life that no one will ever be able to take away from me. 2008 was pretty close in terms of what we achieved, but I don't remember much of that.
So is that something you pushed aside because you didn't get to where you'd sort of set your goal?
Yeah, probably had no need to reflect on it. The one thing I do remember is that I was in the warm up, and they used to have the bloke who'd ride around on the horse and him swinging the sword, and I thought it was near me. I'm give a bit of a duck, and half the crowd starts laughing. Fuck you, Chris.
It'd be tough ass to go over there and play a final,
especially when they were in that era.
Oh yeah.
So that kind of the ability to move on, I suppose, is what you're talking about, and just not get caught up in some of the harder times or the losses.
Do a quick review.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? What could I have done better? I need to improve on, but I don't sit there dwelling on what could have been, sort of thing. Well, there's nothing to be gained out of that.
That's an impressive attribute to have, because there would be a lot of people probably a lot of your teammates that hang up on that loss. Probably, I don't know. I'm just assuming, but to look back on it, like Curtly Beale, like they've never won a comp. Oh no, he did win a comp, didn't he? Yeah. Sorry, I've just lied. Caught in a lie.
No, but you're right. Like, some of those guys went to the 1 year they finished first and then bowed out, and 2, they lost to the Brumbies when they were hosting the home final, and then they lost to the Crusaders in another final over there and lost to the Crusaders. They've gone through so close and haven't won. So, as I said, the fact that I did win one is unbelievable, that sense of achievement. And, you don't have 10-year reunions to make the grand final.
Yeah, 100%.
Just onward, next one. Yeah.
So after that, it's sort of your 2009 season with the Tars. Run us through that, because it was a transition in coaching, you were saying?
Yeah, new coach came in, and just, for whatever, I didn't fit the picture, and unfortunately didn't get any opportunities that year. So found myself looking for a professional contract anywhere in the world at that stage, and nothing came about. And then one day the manager said, "Listen, I've got some good news and some bad news." He said, "I've got an offer." I was like, "Okay, what's the bad news?" He goes, "It's in the 3rd division in Italy." I'm like, "Oh, okay, awesome." And so it was sort of professional / semi-professional contract. There was 3 international players. We were the only ones paid enough that we didn't have to work, and that was the offer on the table. And he said, "It's either that or you can go back to work." And I went, "Stuff that! Not at 23 years of age. Go to Italy and enjoy the cultural experience, and have a look at the food, the country, and the women."
How was that transition for you? I mean, like, obviously a change of scenery in Italy is amazing. If anyone, has been there, it's unreal. But
have you been to Italy?
I've been. So it's not about me, mate. We've got Beau in here, right?
How's the transition living in Italy? There was no women that spoke English for 2 months. It was
lots
pretty
of
tough.
hand gestures.
Yeah, but I mean,
it was a dry couple of months.
But I mean, as in the playing, professional rugby, Super Rugby, and then going and playing 3rd division in Italy, was that something that was hard for you to accept?
The coaches over there were pathetic.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating. Yeah.
Because you obviously wanted to give so much, but you just weren't given the opportunity to provide
the quality, it would be not even Brisbane first grade would not be anywhere near what it was over there. I think I would compare it to, say, Sydney 3rd grade club rugby, probably 2nd grade. Yeah.
So you're doing the career that you want to be doing. You're playing rugby, which is what you want to be doing, better than landscaping or whatever. But you're doing it in a not very desirable circumstance. Yeah, you're in Italy, but you're playing 3rd division. How do you get yourself up for playing? Like, how for
pretty
games?
Tough. Like, even our culture was not real good in the team then either. As I said, the coaches, no one sort of listened to them or respect them. They didn't know what they were talking about.
It must be pretty hard at that time to see, like, where the fuck's this going? Where am I going with this? What am I just biding time here? Am I in limbo sort of thing?
Yeah. I didn't sort of. It was a bit of uncertainty, I suppose, there about where will the next contract come from. Like, not exactly like there's too many people knocking on your door from 3rd division in Italy. Sort of thing. So, yeah.
How did you manage it? How did you manage that situation and get up and go and play?
Well, it was probably
big bowl of spaghetti bolognese.
yeah,
good to go.
Drank. I don't know that I was necessarily managing it. I was quite frustrated. I was just like, probably asking, how am I going to get out of this? Because our team was going crap. Like, we were closer to the bottom of the table than top of the table. It's not like we were having the opportunity to earn promotion. So I was just getting frustrated, and I wouldn't say I did manage with that.
So I suppose it's just at that point in time, you're 23, like, you're just probably more enjoying living it up on the other side of the world.
Oh, I wouldn't say living it up, because we weren't on the I was on 1,800 euros a month.
Yeah, right.
So not big money. I would have got more probably staying in Sydney working as a garbo, to be honest.
Yeah,
right.
right.
I did I love travelling, so I did enjoy the cultural experience, and I was living with a couple of good blokes, and the bloke who owned the pub / cafe / restaurant literally across the road from us was a legend who looked after us. So that made it a little bit easier. And I had, I did have little weekends booked away for budget travelling. Like flights over there, I remember I was going to go see a mate in Germany, and the flights were $6 Australian each. So I booked them, and we didn't know when our time off was going to be. So I booked one, I think, Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday arvo, and Saturday morning, and then booked the return. I booked 4 different return flights, just knowing that I'd be able to get on one of them. And that was probably what was, kept me going in terms of motivation, was the opportunity to make the most of being in a shit situation, but have a look at the world.
Yeah, well,
turning it into a bit more of a positive experience, I suppose, making the most out of the situation. Your brother was coming over with a mate to visit you in 2010, and tragically, lost his life in an accident. Happy to run us through.
Yeah, so I walked off field on a Sunday and had this message from mum, call me, and no kiss, no hug, no hello, how you going or anything, or no love, mum. And anyway, I was pissed off because we'd lost again. Again, not managing and don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation. Threw my phone back in the bag, and then I was like, just wait. As I said, there was none of that. Hey, how you going? Thinking about what time it is back in Australia. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh, geez, that's not right. And so I picked up the phone. And initially, I thought it was going to be Dad. It was dead. Dad had cancer. Mum was sitting there bawling her eyes out, crying. Couldn't get any words out. And I thought, fuck, yeah, Dad's dead. As I said, he'd been through cancer. Both her parents were in hospital, I think, or caring or nursing home, whatever it may be, but she was just too distraught that I was like, that's not what it is. And unbelievable how this is all going through my head so quickly. And then I was like, well, it's not my half-sister either, because that's Dad's daughter, so not Mum's, so he would have made that phone call. And then Dad gets on and he says, it's Dano, he's dead. And I was like, fuck, there I was on the other side of the world, pretty lonely and just wanting, just not, everything going through my head, what's going on. And it was bloody rocked my world, obviously. So I had to go over to London. Went over to London that night and caught up with his mate, because his mate had been out on the town with him. They got split up, as you do.
Oh, fuck.
And just all of a sudden he gets a knock on the door in the afternoon going, Dan's dead. So that poor bastard was there for God knows how long, not knowing what's happening. And
on his own.
On his own. Yeah, that was tough. So finally got over there and had to go and identify the body the next day and go through all the procedures and red tape, and then flew back to Australia.
Wow. So that's obviously a life-changing occurrence.
Yeah, that was exactly, life-changing occurrence. It was bloody tough. So obviously had his funeral and did his eulogy, which was pretty moving, pretty impressive to see. The lives that he had touched. So many people reached out to me and told me their story about the impact he had on their lives. Even if it had just been one time they'd met him, they would tell an unbelievable story, and that was quite. I was quite proud of that. That he had left that legacy and touched so many people. And then I was, okay, what am I going to go and do? I was just so lost. So I went and did some labouring with a mate who was out in Burke, and just wanted to get away from Dubbo a bit and wanted to go somewhere a bit quieter and get my mind off things. No point just sitting around home, but couldn't go and play rugby in my previous job. And I was out there and thought, it was a good opportunity to just assess and reflect and what do I actually want. And from then I was like, right, no, I want to get back into rugby, and I want to be a professional rugby player, and I want to be a professional rugby player in Australia. I don't care if any contracts come up overseas. I just want to stay in Australia and have a good crack at it. So I moved down to Sydney, went down there, and obviously didn't have a professional contract, so I linked up with my old club, which was actually a new club at this stage, Warringah Rats. Went back there and got a job through a mate who was working as a garbo, as a rubbish collector. So I had opportunities and offers to go and get a career or a job in the city, but I was like, no, I just want to work, and then so that I can finish work and go and do my extra training and whatnot, whatever I need to do to be a professional rugby player again. So I was doing that, hoping that a professional rugby contract would come up. Rod McQueen, who is the Melbourne Rebels, were coming in the next year, 2011. I was like, shit, that'll be a good opportunity. Rod McQueen was affiliated with our club at Warringah, and I was the captain of it at that stage. So I was like, okay, this should be a good opportunity here. But unfortunately didn't sign me, so I was doing that, and I'd gone back to uni, study full time as well, so I was pretty hectic. And reached out to Ewan McKenzie through my agent, and he said, oh no, he's looking after the young blokes up there, which was fair enough. He's looking after at that stage they had Jake Schatz, Liam Gill, Ed Quirk, and had Lee Tamiki on the books as well and a few other guys. So they were pretty stocked there, which was fair enough. But I reached out to you and myself and said, can I come up just for an opportunity? And he said, okay, well, I've got no contracts or money, but yeah, you can come up. So I was training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday with the Reds, and I was working in a pub out at Goodna on Wednesday and Friday night, and going training Saturday morning, and Saturdays and Saturday nights working at the pub. And, again, plenty of good came out of that. I just went and caught up with the bloke who owns that pub. He's a good mate of mine for lunch today.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So you came up from Sydney to Queensland to train with the Reds and with no contract.
Yeah.
And
No commitment, yeah.
you sustained yourself by pouring beers.
Yeah, South Magpies, the mighty South Magpies, the legends, they hooked me up with a room in one of their places. There were a couple of other blokes, older blokes who were involved with the club, working in the club. So, and Cameron, I got to stay at his place, good old Camo. But yeah, like I'd left, my brother had passed away in January, played club rugby in Sydney, and then I moved up here at the start of November. So that was pretty tough again, because all my mates, like my brother and I had lived together before I moved to Italy, in Queenscliff in Manly at that stage, and we had a awesome tight-knit little network and community down there that leveraged off, and thankfully that's where I moved back to too, because it was really good to have those guys. I needed that support network and going through that, and when I come back from Italy, I'd rekindle my relationship with my girlfriend at the time and really needed her support. She got me through a fair bit too, and then here I was sacrificing and leaving all that to come up here and pursue
Again.
Yeah, the goal, the dream.
What's the mindset there? You just, as at this stage, you just like, well, I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, totally changed. Like, I'd never taken rugby for granted at all, because I had to work so hard to get there, but just it was a new, steel, resilience and mindset of, right, I've literally got absolutely nothing to lose, just changed perspective on life a fair bit more, and I had a pretty good perspective on life in anyway, sort of thing.
I was going to say, it sounds like you already had that really good attitude and a good perspective, but that, obviously that traumatic event, losing your brother and whatnot, it's kind of just like, well, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, I think anyone that's been through that, hopefully they've sat there and gone, shit, it does change your perspective. I don't think anyone can sit there and say that it did not change their perspective. But then I think sometimes people they know now what they should be doing more so, because they've actually had time to reflect and assess and what do I want. But then they go back to the old, the easy, and they just go to doing something that they were doing before, even though they said, now
this is the turning point.
Yeah, this is the turning point. But they don't go and actually act on that.
Yeah,
I was like,
100% right, mate. Yeah, I think people know the difference. People know what the right thing is to be doing, what they should be doing. In the back of their heads, they know. But I suppose in a fast-paced life, it's easy to find excuses why not to, and it's also scary for a lot of people. But this is, I guess, when we talk about this self-assessing stuff, like, a lot of people only do that when they experience a traumatic event or like a big life event that shakes them up, like a broken relationship or a death in the family or anything, lost job, whatever. But I suppose it's important to really try to get that message across that it's something you should be doing regularly anyway, to try to put yourself in the best position.
You've got to schedule that in, and often, I work with some. So I do a lot of the leadership and culture stuff, obviously, nationals, multinationals, but I still do a little bit of the small business stuff back in Dubbo and around that area. And I sit there and have days where people have to come in and stop, assess, reflect, set goals and sort of go, how am I going? Because if you don't make time for it, like there's guys there that have small businesses, and if they don't come to that session, which is every 3 months, they won't go and do it. They just don't make time for it. So people won't do that in their lives. So when do you actually schedule that?
Mm-hmm.
When do you actually schedule that? Like you guys are in the business. I've seen upstairs you've got a fair bit on the walls. You look like you've got
fair bit.
But you've got plans and goals there, and you sit there and assess and review that again, much like a rugby team. Once a week by the looks of it, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, we do. We have a morning a Monday morning entire company meeting, and then Dan and the marketing team meet after that. And they meet every morning for a quick whip as well. But I think we've always been driven to be looking further forward and not so much day to day and know.
But you got to stop because you look forward, but too often you don't stop and look back.
Definitely.
What have we achieved? How are we going? Right, I did set these goals. How have I actually gone and achieved? Just grind, moving forward, as opposed to no, stop. How are we going? Am I on track? Is this going right?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, I think the biggest thing for us is figuring out what has definitely worked and what definitely hasn't, and then focusing on what does work and then working on what hasn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, but no one really does that a lot for their personal lives. And you're right, people just grind along. Yeah. But I mean, how do you? Well, we did speak about it earlier, but how do you try and make that a priority, or is it just showing people what can be achieved by doing it and setting that example yourself and reflecting that out for other people to see, or is it more educate? I don't know. Like, how
is it asking questions and getting them to again discover that? So have you done that? Do you think that would be beneficial? What do you actually want to do? Have you got any goals for this year? Do you have any holidays planned? Why? Why not? Is there anything in particular that you would like to do with your kids?
It's just questioning. Yeah. Just asking them.
I think it's a bit uncomfortable, right? Like, when you have to when you've got to answer those questions yourself, no one has to hear it, right?
Right. Yeah, you want you. That's why I do that too. I go. We're talking about going and see other people. I go and see other people to make sure that I do that and to get an outside perspective, because sometimes it is a bit daunting to do that by yourself. So again, people would go and say, as if you get, I don't want to go and see a psychologist. It's a sign of weakness. I would sit there and go, well, I'm going to go see a psychologist so I can get the most out of myself. Like, how are you looking at that?
Yeah.
Same as, it was a common thing with a business coach to go, I don't want to see a business coach. My business isn't doing shit. Mate, coaching is all about taking you to the next level. Same as with a rugby team. The coach is there not because you're shit. Yeah. They're trying to make you better.
Yeah.
That is a fucking perfect example. The best rugby teams in the world have got a coach.
Mate, Tiger Woods and Roger Federer are surrounded by different experts and gurus and coaches, all trying to refine, whether it be Tiger Woods probably with his putt, chip, drive, all different aspects of his game. Not because he's shit, because he wants to be the best, he wants to keep on top.
So true, but people don't, it's not, it doesn't filter back through into everyday society, does it?
I think this is a good it's a good, perception, I suppose, when you've been an athlete and you understand that coaching, that mentality and what you get out of it. But when you talk about going and seeing a psychologist or whatever, you're 100% right. You want to get the most out of yourself. You want to be as good as you can. But a lot of people, the conversation around seeing mental health professionals now has changed a lot, and I think everyone knows it. It's a much more common thing that more common than what anyone knows. But a lot of people are scared because they've never done it. They don't know what they might. What might happen, what they might discover about themselves. You know what I mean? I think that unknown.
Do you reckon it's that, or do you reckon it's the fear of what others will say about them? Still that group mentality, as if you go, fuck off, mate.
Well, that's
group. That's the key word.
But that's a whole set. That's a whole another issue, isn't it? Because when you sort of
But if you spoke individually to someone about it, conversation completely different. As in,
or even if they're in the piss.
Yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, I think we're slowly changing the perception, and conversations like this hopefully are going to change, people's understanding of what the importance is of seeing other people and opening up and, setting goals and striving to be better and not just accepting for who you are and always getting,
People think when you're setting goals, they've got to be big goals like, I want to have a boat worth $500,000, or I want to live in this massive mansion or whatnot. But for me, I went away, over the Christmas break. I did 2 trips. I went away to Wagga and looked after a little farm down there for a bloke who was going away to the coast, who wanted a bit of time away from the farm. And, I didn't take my phone there. Then I came back, I had New Year's Eve, and then I went out to Winaring about 2 hours past Burke and took my little man out there. That was a goal of mine, to take my little man out west. go do some shooting, just have a bit of a look around, drive around, and again, stay off the phone. Goal, ticked.
Yeah.
That's a good
Achievement.
start for me for the year. That's the first thing I did in 2020 sort of thing, So already by the end of the first week, I have achieved a pretty significant goal to go 4 nights off the phone.
How did you find that experience?
Oh, mate, love it. I love getting out there and I love getting off the phone too, yeah.
It's amazing how attached you do get to it. Because even when you do, put it away, you notice yourself just in what you're doing. Then you stop and you look around and you think, oh, fuck. And then you...
Even if you don't have service, you'll still just pull it out and be, it's stupid. And I'm one of those people that always has to be doing something. So that's why I purposely do not even take the phone. It's not I don't have service. It's like I don't have a phone. So I'm a lot more engaged with the people that are around me. And, my little boy's only 4 years old, so that was pretty cool, spending that quality time with him and really engaging with him. I loved it.
Mate, that's awesome.
Get your priorities right.
Well, sorry, did I just cut
No, you go.
Sorry.
You go.
I was just, so that 2011, you're pouring beers in the pub at Goodnut. You're training with the Reds, who are a stacked side. Run us through what happened when that season kicked off. Like, walk us through that journey.
Yeah, so I got a opportunity I first of all got selected on the bench for the first trial, which was up against the Crusaders in Cairns. So awesome, ticked that goal, bang.
And you're still not on the payroll or contract by this stage?
No. So bastards that dig it into me working time.
Yeah.
And then get selected again on the bench for the trial up in Darwin against the Brumbies, and then the following week, we got selected on the bench against the Force. So unbelievable, ecstatic to do that. Again, I achieved another goal there. That was a pretty big goal to do that. It was like making my debut almost again because of what I'd been through. The following week, we go down to New South Wales and we get smashed 30-6. By the Waratahs, and there was a real turning point in the change rooms after the game, or the meeting room after the game, with you and Mackenzie there, addressing what's going on, because we'd trained so well in the pre-season. The boys had finished 5th the year before, pretty pumped after being in the bottom 3 for the 6 years before that. There was a good vibe, but it just wasn't happening. So we had a bit of a tough conversation there. And then the following week, I got selected to start, and we go down and play against the Brumbies in Canberra and knock them off for the first time down there on their home ground. So, goal, tick, had a good win there, celebrated as a team, which was pretty awesome. Come back, played against the Melbourne Rebels, I think, the week after. And then finally the 5th game, play against the Cheetahs, and that was so back then they had an agreement, the Players Association, the Rugby Union Players Association, with the franchises, or ARU as they were known then, had an agreement. If you played 5 Super Rugby matches, they had to give an automatic professional contract, and in that game I actually got man of the match. I've still got the cup of the man of the match, and in the 78th minute I flew into a ruck and got concussion, and then was so anyone not aware of how concussion works, you generally just forget totally what's happening, where you're at, sometimes who you are. And I was coming to the realisation by the time I got in the change rooms that I'm not with the Waratahs anymore. I'm up in Brisbane. I'm playing with the Queensland Reds, and my brother's dead again. So I was going and reliving that again. So that was when I should have been ecstatic and crying with tears of joy. I was crying with pain and loss again. And the boys are walking in the change room just going, "Fuck, what's going on? Like, this guy should be ecstatic, and he's busted just." Over crying, bawling.
Must have been traumatic for, obviously, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, the support staff who would have been in the room for you then, to watch you go through that.
Yeah, pretty tough to handle. And knowing what it was. Thankfully, Guy Shepherdson had been through something similar when Sean Mackay passed away over in South Africa, so he could relate to that, and he gave and comforted me, which was... I was pretty grateful for too, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That's a fuck, you wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No.
For that, to have to relive
mate.
that. That's, mate,
Yeah.
that was heavy. So how did you play again the next week?
So the Sunday we're actually flying out to South Africa. We're going to play 2 games over there. So we went over there. We played against the Lions, beat the Lions over there, and then we're actually going to Newland Stadium, Cape Town, where the Stormers played. Beautiful part of the world. It was great to be back there. And they were number 1. I think they'd won 7 games on the trot at that stage. And, you know, I think it was 2v1 at that stage. And we went over there and we beat them over there. And that was awesome. You know, we had such a tight-knit group that year. We all went out to the nightclub. You know, there was 26 blokes there. It was just 26 Reds blokes just rolling into a nightclub, just, you know, just pumped, celebrating a huge win to come over and knock off the Stormers who were top of the table on their home turf, and again just celebrated the win there.
Were you reflecting there that where you'd sort of where you were again?
Nah, not so much there. I think I may a little bit after the game 5. You know, I was staying in a motel room. My mum had come up from Dubbo to come and watch it, so it was nice. That was the first time also that I was going overseas again after my brother had passed. So I think, you know, she wanted to be there to see me off there, and then, you know, I'd gone through that again. So poor old mum, she's been on a bit of a roller coaster ride as well. And, you know, but just sitting there reflecting, maybe not so much reflecting but just relief that I'd had a bit of stability and security for the rest of the season. You know, it's not like I could get an injury next week and I wouldn't know how I was going to get paid.
Pay the bills,
whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty good.
Massive achievement.
Yeah, the one in Cape Town was just more about just being in the moment, and just appreciating it. And even now, you know, a lot of those guys still talk about that actual game.
Really, as a turning point for the season to go on to what you eventually did?
Yep.
You had that belief then, I suppose,
that
you could do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. You know, shit, we're the real deal here.
Fuck, and then, you guys went on to win a comp.
Go on and win the Super Rugby title, which was unbelievable. Yeah, to go on there, the emotions, you know, after that again, I didn't get too caught up with emotion after the game there. I don't think. It was just like, that's when I was going, fuck, I can stop now and actually, you know, reflect on what a roller coaster this last 12 months, or it was longer than 12 months at that stage, but even 3 years, you know, since the 2008 Super Rugby final, what a roller coaster of a ride that was. And sitting there and, you know, at the Normby up there, got my couple of good mates there that had come up from Dubbo and Bathurst, and mum and dad and dad's mate and my uncle. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome moment there.
How good's that? All the toil, all the hard work.
Was that the pinnacle, do you think, or was it playing for the Wallabies?
No, I would say that is, like, again, we're talking about that was the pinnacle. You've got something there, and I suppose you do. You know, you've got something even with the Wallabies that no one will be able to take away from you. But again, coming back to that team, like, I am now connected with those guys for what we achieved just off that one game.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Wallabies, not really. You know, the following week we lose to Samoa, and you talked about that I'd erase most of the memory of the Waratahs. I'd erase most of the memory of the game against Samoa the following week. So I remember watching. Someone had shared something on Facebook where it was, you know, the highlights package of that game. I actually watched it, and I sent a message to Rod Davies going, fuck, I'd actually erased how much they actually bashed us. Especially you poor bastard. Yeah, so I hadn't given that much thought. But no, 2011 was pretty special, you know, as I said, especially after that journey to get up there and do that as a team and share that with the entire team.
Mate, it's an amazing journey, isn't it?
I have a question. We're getting pretty close here, just about getting towards wrapping it up. How does it, hearing what we've heard, as a bloke who used to live in the kennel and finished school at Stannies, that didn't want to go to uni, have a rugby career like what we've heard, and then write a book about leadership.
Yeah,
how does that happen?
So the book is probably not so much about leadership. It's about just unlocking the goals to be the key steps to be successful. So it's not so much about leadership, although I'm writing another book about leadership and whatnot. Yeah, it's really interesting because I think there's this perception, and probably people listening to this podcast, you know, I've got the country twang, I swear a bit rough the way I played, got the blonde hair, you know, I'm not exactly clean cut, but I'm not stupid. You know, I'd done pretty well at school, and for me, I always enjoyed reading. And I think when you find something that you're passionate about, then you know you'll get better at that anyway. So I'd never done, like, I was in the top classes with English, but it definitely wasn't a strength, unlike maths where I really excelled. But people really appreciate when I do write, because I write how I speak, but also I'm writing about stuff that I'm passionate about. I think
that's the key.
Any time you're talking or, you know, expressing yourself, something you're passionate about, you know, I can sit there and listen to just about anyone as long as they're passionate. You know, you live off their passion. And I said, I might not be interested in what they are talking about, but I'm thriving off their passion that they have for their particular topic. So when you do that, you're a lot better at expressing yourself.
That's awesome.
Fuck, that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was an incredible story, mate. I mean, people, I know I definitely got a shitload out of that. Yeah, I can speak for Dan. I know he's got a lot out of it because he's speechless, the big fella.
Yeah.
Mate, it's an amazing story, and I don't think a lot of people would know that, what you did go through in your career, because, I mean, for me, like, when you guys won the comp, I was first year out of school. I mean, and you were the new guy on the block playing for the Reds, and we're like, this guy's got it fucking sorted, you know, like. But I don't think, anyone had a...
We only got 2011.
Yeah.
Fuck. It doesn't... There's a fair bit more up to 2017, I can tell you too. It doesn't get any easier.
The story doesn't stop, does it?
Oh, no. But anyway...
And I think, there's been no one more qualified to write about success and the keys to unlocking success, because you've learned...
You've lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know... Obviously, I don't have a heap of Wallabies caps. You know, I haven't played 100 tests and whatnot. But I see a lot of guys who maybe have played 50 tests who should have 100, or 20 and should have 50. You know, they haven't reached their potential for whatever reasons, generally because of to their own self-destruction. Whereas I feel as though, you know, I have reached my potential. I've really given it the most. So I talk a lot about, you know, squeezing the lemon. It's not how much juice you've got in the lemon or how much juice you get out of the lemon. It's ensuring that by the time you finish squeezing, there is nothing left in that lemon. And, you know, I feel as though I've definitely done that. Like, I have had nothing else to give by the time I did finish my career. And, you know, another bloke who comes to mind like that is Ben Daly. Like, that bloke went through so much throughout his career that his body was just wrecked from injury after injury, and that's what I admire in people. Not what they are capable of, their potential, but what they actually achieve and reaching their potential. I think, you know, you just got to focus on what you're capable of and what you can achieve, as opposed to trying to compete with everyone else.
You're
a sense of fulfillment, really, isn't it? Yeah.
You're saying you sat in Darren Lockyer's seat. You're actually starting to sound like him as well, because he said the exact same stuff, mate. He goes, I asked him, who do you look up to? And he goes, you might not have heard of this bloke, but Michael DeVere.
Oh yeah.
You know, he goes, he's not, you know, represented his state, you know, all this sort of stuff, but he milked every last drop out of the potential that he had, and Lockie said that's what he respects the most, and you've just said the exact same thing. If you can do
that especially out of a rugby team or any team, but, you know, a rugby team, you will win the comp every day of the week because you've just got everyone to play. You know, you've got to have the right cattle, but look at the Reds in 2011, 2012 didn't win, you know, 2013, then 2014, 2015, core squad. But it's about making sure that everyone gets the most out of themselves at the same time. Yeah, so that's interesting, and that's all you want as a coach too. When you're a coach, is just getting your blokes to give the most that they can give.
There's a lot to be said for team sports, and it's not just about bloody winning, is it? Like, it's good. Like, the other lessons you learn are far more important than winning, right? Yeah. It's about working for each other and knowing how to represent for everyone else around you.
Thanks, Beau. Epic.
Been great. Yeah,
really
awesome.
appreciate your time. Fucking can't wait to get this out there to the world.
We'll have to get you back in here to go for 2011, 2019.
The present.
Yeah, let's do it next time we're up, eh?
Life
Perfect.
after footy.
No, well, it's not even life after footy. It's just trying to stay on top.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
To
Thanks,
be
mate.
continued.
Cheers.
See ya.